So for my second video, I'm going to talk about talent identification and talent development, two terms that really epitomise what talent actually is. During my coaching journey and football career myself, identifying the talent is only the beginning, and then developing the talent is something that you can work on with the athletes once that talent has been identified. This can be very difficult for a coach to see and to develop and to identify. So I'm going to talk about how talent identification and then developing the talent can really epitomize an athlete's career pathway. So throughout this video, I'm going to talk about how identifying talent can be a difficult process, how the athlete can make it difficult for their talent to be developed, and the barriers that could affect an athlete's talent development pathway. Larkin and Reeves suggested in 2018 that from an academic perspective, talent is described as a special natural ability and a capacity for achievement or success. The likelihood of becoming exceptionally competent in certain fields depends on the presence or absence of inborn attributes, variously labelled as talent or gifts. Identifying talent early in an athlete's career will always give them a good opportunity to develop, and sometimes this can be very difficult for coaches to see how they identify that talent. Sometimes can be with a little bit of luck. So for an example, a player could have a really strong performance in a game, and then the next game when somebody who's come down to watch, he could have a really negative performance. Some talent development environments could slow down the process of an athlete's development, and some of them could be a competitive environment. Could there be too much pressure on the athlete and slow down the progression of their talent? So for an example, as you can see on the screen, the World Cup, players who perform in the World Cup, because there's so much pressure on them, would it always show their talent? Selection. Could team selection affect a player wanting to showcase their talent? Could it slow down their development? So here you can see an English player who got his first call up to the national team. Because there's so much pressure on that call up and all the attention's on him, will his talent come through, or will his talent not be identified? Travel. Could tiredness affect an athlete's drive to showcase their talent? So traveling long distances and various bus journeys to get to that sport, could it really hinder how much an athlete wants to showcase their talent? Also injuries. Injuries could slow down how well an athlete's progress through their talent development pathway. So throughout a player's career, they will get injuries. It's all about how they bounce back and how they're willing to then try and showcase their talent again once. Martindale, Collins, Wang, McNeil, Lee and Sproul and Westbury in 2010 suggested that as an alternative researcher have begun to emphasise the development rather than the identification of talent. They also suggested that this is a sensible approach because the environment and the way in which shapes, challenges, supports developing talent is essential for success. So, elaborating on that point, we're looking at more developing athletes who have already been identified, because identifying talent can be very challenging. Coaches will see this a lot in sport because a player who is identified as talented will have natural ability to succeed, and will be seen that they must achieve a goal. Talented athletes don't always have to achieve, they must just naturally have success in areas where other athletes may not. Developing talent is a slow process. There are many strategies to work on this talent. A company called Sported have created an environment where 2,937 community groups have been created. 546,063 young people have been supported. 92 different sports and activities have been offered, and there has been 243 Sported volunteers supporting the group. So as we can see throughout the sporting world at the moment, there is more opportunities being created for players to showcase their talent and develop their talent as well. Williams and Riley suggested in 2000 that in sport, as in any other domain such as science, music and the arts, the attainment of excellence is primary goal of many individuals. Basically, as we all know, and most of us have played sport ourselves, that players are striving to win and showcase their talent at all times. He also explained how remaining competitive clubs now endeavour to invest significant amounts of money in attempting to identify and nurture potentially elite players. Identifying soccer players at an early age ensures that players receive specialised coaching and training to accelerate the talent development process. The more coaching an athlete will potentially get, the more chance they can work on their strengths, work on their weaknesses, increase their talented areas within the game, and this is how they will develop their talent development. So to conclude, for my second video, we've spoke about how important identifying talent really is and potentially how difficult it can be, and also development, how an athlete can develop their talent development pathway by working hard, training all the time, different coaching strategies which could help potentially enhance an athlete's career pathway. So for my third video, we're going to look at something which links really well to identifying talent and then the talent development pathway, because we're now going to look more at the athletes. So with the development and the identifying, we're looking at the coaches and people watching. We're now going to look at the athletes themselves, and we're going to look at early specialization. Is early specialization beneficial or not for an athlete?